This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Hundreds of Pakistani lawyers gathered outside the home of the ousted Supreme Court Judge Iftikhar Chaudhry. On his way to Lahore, he led a huge demonstration that was organized by the Pakistani Lawyers Guild to pressure the government into returning the ousted judges to their positions. The protesters also demanded the resignation of the president, Pervez Musharraf. Opposing political parties, writers, retired army officers, students, and human rights activists participated in this demonstration.
Musharraf, the lion has come. You've got to go. This was one of the main slogans chanted by the demonstrating lawyers as the ousted Supreme Court judge was leaving his home to participate in a large march that will end at the parliament on Thursday. Demonstrators, including lawyers and political activists, came from all over the Singh and Walichistan. They have the same demand, which is to reinstate the ousted judges, including Iftikhar Chaudhry, without preconditions, a demand that has a great deal of political implications. The demonstrators expressed their optimism about the success of their efforts and demanded that the government does not stop them.
We are very confident that the government will be forced to cooperate with us when our demonstration reaches the capital Islamabad.
Preparations are ongoing in Mulkan in the Punjab region to receive thousands of demonstrators, though both the government and the demonstrators confirmed that the march is peaceful. The demonstrators believe that what they are doing is not aimed at serving any particular individual, rather they believe it is a service and an attempt to save the country.
We are going for the long march in order to pressure the government into returning the ousted judges. We are trying to save Pakistan from an imminent danger.
Courts were empty from lawyers who decided to boycott the courts until the end of this week. The streets of Pakistan were decorated with flags and signs, welcoming the ousted judge and calling for the resignation of Musharraf. After a long time of waiting and a great deal of threats and vows, President Pervez Musharraf's rivals started massing in a demonstration that will reach the capital Islamabad. It is premature, however, to tell whether the demonstrators will succeed or fail at this point.
The simultaneous and daily raids on the Gaza Strip indicate that a wide-scale aggression on Gaza has become imminent. In a meeting today, the Israeli ministerial cabinet made a unanimous decision that calls for a new escalation on the Gaza Strip and also not to give time for Hamas to catch its breath. While the leaders of the Hebrew state claim that the decision is in the interest of national security, some knowledgeable sources said running away from the cooling-off period means running away from political obligations. Sharouk Assad reports from occupied Jerusalem.
The launching of a wide-scale military operation in the Gaza Strip has topped the agenda of the Israeli government and its ministerial council. The vast majority of Israeli cabinet members called for a new escalation in the Gaza Strip.
Any cooling-off period signed with Hamas will give the movement an opportunity and time to strengthen and protect itself and will enable it to develop and smuggle arms. And in the future, we will be forced to confront it. Therefore, I stand firmly against the cooling-off period.
We must carry out a new and different offensive in the Gaza Strip. The offensive must have a specific mission and objective.
Currently, there appears to be a contradiction in the position of the ministers.
ليتخذ القرار.
The Ministerial Council will meet tomorrow to decide whether to engage in a cooling-off period or carry out a limited military operation with the objective to stop temporarily the launching of the Qassam rockets.
While the Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak wants to wait and gradually launch the offensive, the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert wants the offensive to be powerful from the start, which may seem necessary from a security standpoint. However, many believe that Olmert's decision was politically and personally motivated.
Olmert wants to keep the eyes off his criminal files and the ongoing investigation against him. He wants to ride on the waves of animosity against the Palestinian people and also portray himself as a strong military leader.
This is the scene in Israel. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the Palestinian Internal Front believe that it has become imperative to quickly bring harmony and unity back to the Palestinian internal home. Shuruk Asad, Dubai TV, Occupy Jerusalem.
Good evening and welcome to IBA News, coming to you from Jerusalem.
The family of kidnapped IDF soldier Gilad Shalit has received a new letter from Gilad. The letter was transferred to the Shalit family late Monday via the office of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter in Ramallah. IBA's Eli Wagelenter has that story.
The family of abducted IDF soldier Gilad Shalit received a new sign of life yesterday in the form of a letter. Shalit's family confirmed that the letter was written by Shalit and written recently, as it referred to a number of recent events. I am in bad health. I dream of the day when I will return home, the letter said. I hope to return soon and demand that the government not abandon me. It is assumed that Hamas dictated the contents of the one-page letter, which was transferred by Hamas via the Carter Center in Ramallah. The Shalits had previously received 2 letters and a taped message from Shalit after he was kidnapped from his IDF post in a cross-border raid on June 25, 2006. Noam Shalit, Gilad's father, said that the new sign of life is not evidence of any progress in talks to free his son. This is better than nothing, but it doesn't calm us. It doesn't change the fact that Gilad has been in captivity for almost 2 years, and it doesn't look like there is any progress in the contacts for Gilad's release, said the soldier's father. But some officials see the release of the letter as a clear sign that there are changes afoot in negotiations with Hamas. A senior Jerusalem source said that Hamas is attempting to frame the move as a goodwill gesture, hoping it will lead Israel to drop its demand to include Shalit's release in a truce agreement. Senior Palestinian sources in Gaza claim that Egypt has increased its pressure on Hamas to submit a new list of prisoners it wants released as part of the ceasefire agreement. Israel has reportedly agreed to release 71 prisoners with blood on their hands from Hamas's original list of 300 prisoners. Some 11,000 Palestinians are currently being held by Israel in prison. Eli Wagelenter, IBA News.
A barrage of close to 20 mortars and Qassam rockets from Gaza provided the backdrop to today's top-level cabinet consultations on whether to launch a wide-scale military operation against Hamas. There were no injuries in those missile attacks. Ahead of the weekly cabinet session, Prime Minister Ehud Olmert met with Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni and Defense Minister Ehud Barak on whether to approve a military strike against Gaza or agree to the Egyptian-brokered ceasefire deal with Hamas. Barak reportedly favors a limited strike in Gaza, which he believes would improve Israel's stance in ceasefire negotiations. All 3 leaders believe that the transfer of Gilad Shalit's letter indicates Hamas's willingness to reach an agreement with Israel and are leaning toward giving Egypt's mediation efforts another chance. Early this afternoon, following the cabinet meeting, the full security cabinet convened to discuss the Gaza situation. Like several other of his cabinet colleagues, Interior Minister Meir Shitrit is opposed to a ceasefire with Hamas.
Any ceasefire will give them possibility to strengthen the ability to smuggle more weapons, to make their weapon more sophisticated with much more power, and to protect themselves much more better when we have in the future, and it's just a matter of time, then we have a clash with them. I think every day that we're waiting for making an operation in Gaza will cost us much more higher price than if we do it much earlier.
Palestinians are suffering from the isolation and the boycott, and children are the most harmed.
إن وضع الفلسطينيين مأساوي ولا يتماشى مع التعاليم الحقيقية للديانة اليهودية.
The treatment of the Palestinians is tragic and is not in line with the real understanding of the Jewish religion. This description of the true colors of the occupation was made by the top British rabbi, Jonathan Sacks, and it can be applied to all the Palestinians. So how is the situation for the children?
مستوى خط الفقر وأكثر من 35% من ضحايا الحصار من الأطفال و30
56% of the residents of Gaza are children and under the poverty line. More than 35% of the victims of the boycott are children. 30 of the martyrs of Gaza are children.
الحصار والعزل فاقم من المعاناة.
The Israeli occupation forces have arrested more than 345 children and placed them in jails. The boycott and isolation have increased the suffering and have affected the young. Nearly 65 children have died as a result of the lack of treatment, food and medical supplies. The rest are just waiting.
التبول الليلي نتيجة الأمراض وحالة الرعب التي تصيبهم.
35% of children of Gaza suffer from bedwetting as a result of diseases and their state of fear due to the Israeli massacres, arrests and torture of them, their family and friends. The children's catastrophe does not end there. More than 12% of children in Gaza suffer from stunted development as a result of chronic malnutrition, which affects more than half of the children. Studies confirm that in the past 7 years, more than 1,000 Palestinian children were martyred and more than 19,000 others were wounded, including more than 750 disabled children who dream of being treated humanely.
بينهم أكثر من 750 معاقا يحلمون بالحد الأدنى من المعاملة
The children of Palestine will remain as witnesses to the racism of the occupation, scenes which will increase and be ingrained in their minds as they grow older. How will the Israeli entity be safe with such memories, which increases and becomes harder every day?
سيأمن كيان الاحتلال مع هذه الذاكرة التي تفيض من كثرتها وقسوة أيامها.
This is what the occupation forces are doing in Palestine. However, in Iraq, the United States, since its invasion of Iraq, has followed a policy that is based on destroying the infrastructure and striking at economic, social health, and educational institutions.
The policies of the U.S. occupation forces have affected all sectors of Iraqi society, and even the children who are subjected to poverty, killing, and malnutrition. Notably, the United States was one of the most prominent countries that has not ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child.
After more than 5 years have passed since the occupation of Iraq, the Iraqi people are suffering catastrophic conditions at the humanitarian level, with the rise in the rate of poverty and lack of food and water, as well as increased unemployment. International reports and surveys indicate that 4 out of 10 Iraqis live below the poverty line and do not earn more than $1 a day, according to the UN poverty standards. Meanwhile, there's a large increase in cases of malnutrition children. More than 30% of these cases are in danger of dying as a result of this. This reality seriously affects the future of these children at the social, health, and educational levels, after their countries' institutions and homes have been destroyed by the actions of the occupation. Surveys confirm that more than 5 million Iraqis have become orphaned as a result of U.S. combat. This number increases every day by an average of 400 children. The surveys, which announced that thousands of children were killed by the U.S. war apparatus, including the use of internationally banned weapons like depleted uranium and white phosphorus, reported that military experts confirmed that the bombing of Baghdad was equal in destructive power to half of a nuclear bomb. This has led to birth defects among children, which will affect the Iraqi people for many years. At this time, studies by the United Nations confirmed that the U.S. forces in Iraq have violated the Convention on Children's Rights by arresting hundreds of children and using the most brutal forms of torture against them. Uncle Bush's democracy did not spare even the children. The international community must dare to speak out its true opinion without fear in order to protect humanity.
حفاظا على الإنسانية ومفاهيمها.
غادر الرئيس الفلسطيني محمود عباس مدينة جدة متوجها إلى العاصمة.
The Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas left the Saudi city of Jeddah and headed towards the Egyptian capital of Cairo. First, he held discussions with the Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz about the situation in the Palestinian territories and the peace process. Then he met with the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak. Abbas reiterated that the only way to deal with the situation in Gaza is through dialogue and stressed the importance of the Egyptian efforts that have been exerted in order to reach a cooling off period between Israel and the Palestinians.
The discussions between the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, and the Egyptian president, Hosni Mubarak, in Cairo covered several topics, including the resumption of Palestinian-Israeli peace negotiations, the contacts with Israel to reach a cooling-off period, and the mediation efforts to start a dialogue between Fatah and Hamas. The meeting between the two presidents took place a few days after the meeting between Abbas and the Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert. The meeting also coincided with the Egyptian efforts led by Minister Omar Suleiman to achieve a comprehensive cooling-off period between all Palestinian factions and Israel and put an end to the Israeli attacks on Gaza.
If the Israelis want to do something, they would not have notified us first, and we will not accept such a thing. We have called on and insisted that the only way to deal with the situation in Gaza is through dialogue, which Egypt has been promoting for a long time.
The meeting between Olmert and Abbas came a few days after the first anniversary of Hamas's takeover of Gaza, which led to an internal Palestinian crisis. Many attempts were made to end the differences between the enemy brothers, but all these attempts have failed because each side is unwilling to give their positions up. Fatah insisted on its position not to start any dialogue with Hamas unless the situation in Gaza is returned to the way it was before the takeover in July 14, 2000, and Hamas wanted to resume negotiations without any preconditions. Recently, hope was renewed after the PLO proposed an initiative to end the differences between the two sides.
We have proposed an initiative for dialogue in the name of the PLO and its executive committee. By the way, all the members of the executive committee of the PLO who represent different factions are in charge of all the steps that will be taken to resume dialogue with everyone.
If an agreement is reached, there will be a large welcome by the Arabs and the Arab League, which has sponsored the dialogue process between the Palestinian factions. The meeting between Abbas and Mubarak was very important because it comes at a time when there is possibility for a true dialogue between Hamas and Fatah. It is expected that in the next period, additional efforts will be exerted to achieve peace by the Americans before Bush leaves the White House. For Al Madar program, Mohammed Abu Rihab, Abu Dhabi Television, Cairo.
قناة أبو ظبي القاهرة.
The Libyan leader Muammar al-Qaddafi renewed his rejection of the Euro-Mediterranean Union, warning that it harbors Arab and African unity. This came at the opening ceremony of the mini-Arab summit being held in Tripoli with the participation of the presidents of Arab countries in order to discuss the Euro-Mediterranean Union, which was proposed by the French president Nicolas Sarkozy.
الفكرة انطلقت في برشلونة عام 1995.
The idea was made in Barcelona in 1995, and since then it has been called the Barcelona process. France, Italy, and Spain adopted the idea last year. The issue deals with returning to the framework of relations between the European Union countries, especially those on the Mediterranean Sea, and those countries south of the Mediterranean, mainly the Arab ones. The objective is to develop the countries on the Mediterranean in order to reduce the possibility of its residents immigrating to Europe. These are the Medi-European countries that are participating in the project on the European side. These are the partners from the southern side. Europe is proposing political reforms that will guarantee the spread of democracy, the protection of human rights, security cooperation, continued economic development in addition to cooperation in the environmental, energy, and cultural affairs. If this is achieved, the residents of the southern Mediterranean countries will have no need to immigrate to Europe. That said, many Arab countries still want clarifications about Israel's participation in the project. Ola Mutara, Al Arabiya.
The political front in Sudan is witnessing a crucial debate between the governments of the north and the south over the future of the border region of Abyei. This news comes after thousands of residents fled the region following fearless confrontations that erupted over the past few days between Sudanese rivals. The region is currently hosting political talks, which may require the help of international mediators if deadlocked. The two sides of the Abyei conflict are the North and South, which held on Sunday talks in Khartoum. The two sides have signed a declaration of understanding, which was described as necessary. However, to understand the Sudanese scenario, we must draw a parallel between the Khartoum talks and other related developments at the international level. This comes after several international maneuvers were launched in Sudan in an attempt to resolve the stalled issues in the country. What is the current political situation in Sudan, and what is the nature of the struggle in the disputed region of Abyei? Will the Sudanese be able to meet at the intersection of national interests and help achieve stability in the country? What is the nature of international diplomatic maneuvers launched in Sudan? Where is the country heading to on political scale of success and failure? These questions are being raised in today's episode of the African Issues program. Let's watch the following report.
The political scene in Sudan is being overshadowed by the recent developments in Abyei, not to forget the incidents of Omdurman, which their effects are still lingering. The region of Abyei used to be a model of harmony and coexistence between the North and the South, a model that could have been developed and applied to the rest of the country. However, a troubling issue has emerged in the region of Abyei, where some accuse the National Conference Party, which formed a coalition government with the People's Liberation Movement, of trying to stir troubles in the region.
The fact of the matter is that the People's Liberation Movement was behind all previous problems that helped fuel tensions in the region. The Liberation Movement was the one appointing a governor for Abyei in violation of the peace agreement. In addition, the Liberation Movement was the one launching attacks on the Sudanese army and pursuing the children of the Arab Syria tribe. This action by the Liberation Movement did not help the fragile situation in Abyei. The movement has turned its back on the peace agreement.
The call for the division and the redrawing of the borders in Abyei contradicts the principles of national unity, which the Liberation Movement is claiming to be part of. According to observers, this call by the Liberation Movement for the redrawing of the borders in Abyei is stirring a political cloud in the future of Sudan. It is a time bomb in the history of struggle over the land, a struggle that may continue to grow unless a serious and lasting settlement is reached.
The Protocol of Abyei, which was put together in Nefasha, was not drafted by accident. This was indeed part of a U.S. policy, which usually originates in regions with abundant natural resources and ends up in international intervention.
The latest protocol signed between the Sudanese rivals was drafted in conformity with the border agreement of 1956 and calls for the creation of a joint administration that includes 20 representatives from both parties. The protocol also calls for the withdrawal of the Liberation Movement Army to the southern parts of the Arab Sea. It also calls for the withdrawal of the armed forces and replacing them with the joint forces of Sudan. In addition, the protocol calls for an international mediation in the event the parties run into problems. Furthermore, the two sides must ease the return of the displaced refugees to their villages. This protocol, if implemented, will help bring life back to normal in Abyei, which is the connecting point between the north and the south. The controversy over the future of Abyei has recently intensified. While some believe that a final decision must be made on the issue of Abyei in order to bring life back to normal, others believe that the issue of Abyei has indeed become the Kashmir plight of Sudan, and the days ahead may provide answers to the many questions raised over the issue of Abyei.
Deal aimed at ending years of war and anarchy in Somalia is looking shaky just hours after it was signed. Agreement was reached late on Monday between rival factions after UN-backed talks in Djibouti. But now the head of one of the warring groups has already rejected the truce. Hamid Adda was in Djibouti for the talks and filed this report.
Sheikh Hassan Dahir Awais' rejection of the deal is seen as a blow to the outcome of the UN-sponsored talks. He may be listed by the United Nations and US government as a terrorist, but he is still influential in the capital Mogadishu and huge parts of southern Somalia. The former chairman of the Supreme Council of Islamic Courts Union is based in Asmara, Eritrea. He spelled out his opposition to the agreement moment after it was signed.
First, they did not adhere to the regulations or the principles of the alliance. Anyway, the agreement does not stipulate that Ethiopia should leave. The other problem is the power-sharing section of the agreement with the traitor government, which is responsible for originally allowing this aggression on our country and is the reason behind it.
Sheikh Awais is believed to have links with the Al-Shabaab movement, the former military wing of the Islamic courts, that has also rejected the deal. And this means that the conflict in Somalia will continue. The government is now sending a passionate plea to remaining groups to join the peace process.
We are appealing to all parties to come and join this historical agreement that was signed last night. And this opposition group who disagree with this agreement, we again tell them, please come and join. And this really, I think, is a historical making for all Somalis. And I think we are on the right track.
The UN-sponsored Somali peace talks in Djibouti came back from the brink on Monday when they yielded an agreement. The Somali government and the Alliance for the Liberation of Somalia, ARS, agreed to cease hostilities within 30 days. They also agreed to facilitate the withdrawal of Ethiopian troops from Somalia within 120 days. However, this will not happen before the deployment of UN peacekeepers to Somalia. This is to avoid a security vacuum and a further worsening of the already volatile situation in the anarchic nation. The biggest challenge right now is how to implement this peace deal. The onus is on the United Nations, which is supposed to move first and deploy peacekeepers to Somalia. It has 120 days to do so. If that doesn't happen, it means Ethiopian troops stay even longer. According to aid agencies, at least 6,000 civilians have died in fighting in Somalia over the past year. It is the hope of the country's war-weary residents that the deal in Djibouti will hold, and all the remaining parties will be pressured to join the peace process. Mohammed Ado, Al Jazeera, Nairobi, Kenya.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic Video Podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.